Hey, Ray, this is Chris Ryan. Thanks for doing this. Obviously, yesterday with you guys signing Wayne Simmonds to a one-year deal, that was your big move of the day. Just how did it all come together with Wayne, and what makes him the perfect addition for you guys in terms of what you were looking for?
Hi, Chris. Yeah, at the end of the season and leading into our amateur scouting meetings and pro scouting meetings, we identified as a group that one of the areas a couple areas we wanted to try to improve upon it in the offseason was trying to somehow secure a top four defenseman, which obviously is always somewhat difficult, it seems, and there's a long line at that queue all the time. So, and the other one was up front we wanted to try to get a little bit bigger, and then certainly if it was possible on the right side behind Kyle Palmieri. We didn't have any natural right wingers, it looked like, after that. So that, the PK Subban thing came around, and certainly with address the top four thing, and specifically to Wayne, that's obviously a real fit for us on the right side there. And I think it was, when it was apparent that Nashville was not going to re-sign him, he was going to be an unrestricted free agency, that we just saw a real good fit potentially here. And when we got an interview period, myself, John Hines, and Tom Fitzgerald had an hour and a half conference call with him and his agent, Eustace King, and I thought it went really, really well. And I think both sides saw a need, and as a player and certainly as a team. And, as a general manager, I've had teams playing against him, Wayne Simmonds, for a long time, and always high amount of respect for the way he plays the game. Obviously, he plays hard, and he plays honest, and he certainly, his teammates and people have been with him from junior to Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and certainly a short time in Nashville. As a person, as a teammate, as someone that is about the team, and we had a lot of interest, and so I think from there, it really, during the talking period last week with free agency, that it really seemed it was going to be a good fit for everybody. And so when it came to fruition, on July 1st, that I think we get another conversation to make sure we're still on the same page with the same people on the call, and it was pretty apparent. So we're from Wayne and his wife Crystal. I think it's a great situation for them, and certainly from our standpoint, what we were looking to really add. And fortunately, it worked out for us and for Wayne, and I think it's a big add for us, and looking forward to having part of our group.
Hey, Ray, Mike Morial, NHL.com. Thanks for doing this. Do you feel satisfied with the makeup of the club right now, or do you anticipate any more moves?
Well, I think what I mentioned earlier, Mike, what we were looking for to try to address, is on defense, and we had certainly a lot of lines in the water, and talking to different teams and defensemen via trade more than anything, and versus free agency. So leading to the draft, with the addition of PK Subban, I think it addressed a lot of needs right there, and Wayne Simmonds, as I mentioned, those were, I think, what we were looking for. But at the same time, as the dust settles, everybody has the grades and so forth out as to how teams have done July 1, and no one winning July 1 is never the goal, and sometimes July 1 is never a winner's market anyway. But certainly when we look at our team, I think now still teams are evaluating their team, and I think today is more of a chance to step back. But I made some calls, and this week will be the same thing, and certainly we want to see what's out there as a chance, as we go into the summertime and the rest of the summer into training camp. But nothing's different. I mean, you're going to ask Trey Jim the same thing. As a chance to improve their team, they will, and that's what we look to do as well. But it's more of taking a step back. We're still in good shape cap-wise, and but it's a good situation. We had that space. I think we utilize it well, and again, with Josh Harris and David Blitzer as managing partners, have been very, very supportive, and as the plan we've kind of laid out when the time is right. And we kind of felt that leading the draft, so took advantage of a couple opportunities and continue to do so if it's available.
Hey, Ray, it's Abby. Last year, the power play was a pretty big area that you guys struggled. Is the hope that maybe PK and Wayne can boost that area, or is it a little bit maybe too soon to think about that so far?
No, I think it's a good thing. I mean, PK has certainly been a guy. They give us more elements, obviously, and we've actually had a pretty good power play here since I've been. I mean, even my first year, we weren't the most talented group, but I think we're in the top 10 in the league, and I don't know if we even had a second unit. We threw out the one unit, and they did a good job, and some of that is, and PK is good, but PK was Nashville's power play was, I think, might have been dead last. So, it's been a struggle for them in the power play, despite all the good players they have down there. But Wayne Simmonds is, to me, he is a net front guy. They had in Philly they had a latitude, with another good player, John Van with Van Riemsdyk when he went there. I think it was one of those. He's a net front guy as well, and when he got healthy, it was both guys do the same thing. So, I look at Wayne as almost John LeClaire and guys like that, net front guys, and I think it's going to help our power because more options, and certainly, with Damon Severson, this gives another option there, and whether it's 4-4s and defensemen, leave it to the coaches, but with Nico and Jack Hughes and Palmieri and Butcher, and I think we have some good options, but a lot of teams that have had good players in power plays and doesn't necessarily indicate or past performance. It doesn't seem to gel sometime, but we're looking forward to different options, and the more you have, the better. And there'll be some competition, hopefully, for those spots. And they got to, you produce, and if not, you've got another group that's going to be able to do that, and gives John some options with Taylor as well as to where he goes. So hopefully, because it's a big part of the game, obviously, but you certainly, the more options you have, the better off you're going to be.
And I'm sure you're probably getting tired of being asked this, but we have to ask again, has there been any dialogue with Taylor Hall at all this week or since Vancouver, since we last talked to you about it?
No, I did talk to his agent, but I think we're on the same page. I think to be no problem asking about it, but I'm just being consistent with what I'm saying here is this is something that we've agreed to put to kind of go through the draft, go through free agents, put the dust up. We have development camp next week, and really what I think both of us need is more and some more information. And it's no different as I say that with Taylor with a year to go. Somewhere later in the summer, this is something when we have the information, and we're going to sit down and kind of see where we are, and it's no different than do with Nico Hischier or something like this on an extension. If you're, I think I want to see what they're thinking. I certainly want them to know what we're thinking. I think if I had done this 3 weeks ago, I think if I sat down again today, it would be a different conversation because things change and we have more information now, and the more information we have, the better. And I don't think anything's changed, like between prior to July 1 or, contractually, he's still under contract. But more importantly is that we're both on the same page, and both groups have been on the same page that let's just get more information. And I want the information as well, and to lay out as to what we're thinking. And that's important with Josh and David. And, obviously some of the things that we've done and proves that we want to improve the hockey team, not just for Taylor Hall, but for our team. That's the most important thing. But again, it's, we're different than we were 2 weeks ago, and we'll see where we are as we go through the month here. And, but again, it's, it's just being consistent, and it's nothing I've not done in the past. I think it's a big decision for Taylor. It's a big decision for the team here, and both sides need the information to have a real fruitful dialogue that's meaningful, and that's been the relationship we've had with Taylor since day one, and so that hasn't changed.
How much is Taylor maybe going to need how good the team is after you put it together in October, November, December, before you and Darren and Taylor are able to potentially long-term contract?
You kind of cut out there, but I think I got the gist of your question. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how into the future this will go. Like, I hopefully, the plan was to have some sort of information and on both sides and sit down, and whether or not, when you have that information, because as we, since the end of the season and April 8th was our year-end media stuff, and Taylor at that time, we're both consistent, even though I didn't know what he was saying, that we needed more talent. And, and then the next day we win the lottery, and it's been, but it's one of those things. I don't have the crystal ball as to when or how or what the story will be, but I think we'll know it when we get to it, and then we'll go from there. And nothing's really changed. I mean, it's in terms of with Taylor, and again, my job is to obviously build the best team I can for the short and long term, and also when it comes to dealing with players and relationships, that it's sit down with them and explain to them as to what we're doing, and I want them to be aware of it. And no different, asking Taylor if, or even if Brian Boyle or Hal Gill, who we played with, who played with us in Pittsburgh and played with PK Subban in Montreal and now down in Nashville. You want to get information. You get information on play, then that's the thing we're trying to do, and I want to give the information to Taylor when we sit down, and I want to see what is on his mind as well. And that's the best we can do, and that's the best he can do, and that's we've been on the same page on that, and because this isn't something to be rushed, and if this was a year ago for the 17-18 season, and we make the playoffs, and he wins MVP. If you had a year left at that point, that would have been the same thing, sitting down in the summertime and then just kind of seeing where we are. And, and that's it. So nothing's really changed in that. It's just, I think it's an important part of what we're doing and, in terms of, our ownership, in terms of, what we have and how we see this. And really, and this is a not unilateral conversation. It's not a conversation myself. I want to find out, no different than I would do with Nico or anybody else I've had in the past. What are you thinking? And see what's on their mind, and see we're on the same page on things, and if there's any concerns or if we have any concerns, and that's all. It's just a dialogue, and that's a transparency and honesty I've had with Taylor since he got here from day one. So there hasn't been a rush on this because both sides would like some more information, and now that as we go out in the summer, finally have some of that and some more clarity, and then we can kind of sit down and have a more meaningful dialogue.
For basically your entire tenure, it's mostly been about sort of the long-term view and building. Does this summer change that at all? I mean, is there any more focus on short-term expectations or results?
I don't know about the expectations or results. I think since my tenure here, it hasn't been all about the long term. It's been about building it the right way, and I always been consistent saying that there will be a time, and I really felt as you win the lottery or whatever, and all of a sudden you have this cap space, and it came together that weekend where we can get a PK Subban, and and dovetails it nicely. It's a 3-year contract. Nico's got 1 year to go out of his entry level, and we're repriced, and obviously Jack Hughes would be the same thing, assuming he's here. After 3 years, it's going to be one of those things where he's going to be after 3 years. So it was one of those things coming into that weekend, and this is where I really said to Josh and David that with the amendment we had with some of our younger players and cap space we had, the cap was going to be lower than expected on teams, and the PK Subban thing became a reality, and it just seemed this is the time to be more aggressive, and that was music to their ears because. I'm the one that was telling, it's not time. I mean, now when you see some of the things that, might be time, and then, say the Subban thing, the Simmonds thing, but, so not only just for, planning for the future, but it's also short term too. We really want to make progress, and we're at the right time, and you can't build forever. I mean, it's, young players, it's great, build, and have all these draft picks, but you only have the way the CBA is, pretty soon they're out of their entry level. Pretty soon they're 4 years. Pretty soon they're unrestricted, and it comes quickly. So it's not like back 2-3 CBAs ago where you basically held their rights to perpetuity. It seemed like till 31 years old or something. So it turns quickly, and there's a lot of moving parts when you start, paying some of these younger players, and all teams go through it. And so there's a certain time frame to try to take advantage of that, and you can't microwave everything, but there's times to actually be more aggressive, and we had the cap space, and and could take advantage of a few things, but that was going to be at the right time, and it wasn't 3-4 years ago.
How much have you sort of taken a step back and seen what other teams around you in the division have done?
I really haven't. I mean, it's as the whole talk was on the draft, obviously, and Devils, Rangers, and certainly if it's the Rangers, Devils, Islanders, could be Columbus, Philly, Pittsburgh. But again, we're in an overall the conference, and certainly the division is important, but so is the conference. But I haven't really, things happen real quick on leading up to July 1 through the draft with trades, and as things settle in. You have to be cognizant of that, I guess, but at the same time, you're trying to build the best team that you can. and that's what we're trying to do. But I think it's certainly a competitive division, and obviously, it's good. It's great for it'd be awesome just in this area and even in South Jersey with the Flyers. But Islanders, Devils, Rangers have real strong teams, and you have, before the season with St. Louis, you had Pittsburgh and a couple times, and you had Washington win the Stanley Cup, and we're still in our division. So it's pretty good division and pretty good conference. And but again, you have to build your team the right way, and hopefully you get that time at some point. But I think it's exciting times for all the teams in this area.
We saw one offer sheet yesterday, and I know it's kind of been the talk of the league kind of leading up to July 1st this year. Does that change any incentive to, especially with Nico, to kind of talk to him now and kind of tape things so he doesn't really hit restricted free agency a year from now?
No, I mean, it doesn't. There's so many. It's funny. There's just so many good restricted free agents right now. Probably the best we've ever seen. And I don't know if younger players tend to go to through their third year, or sometimes it's a team thing, or it really depends team to team. Like a team like Tampa with Kucherov did a bridge deal a couple of years ago, not because of uncertainty, obviously, because Prague is a really good player, and they had, they're at the cap, and but I think with Nico, I'd like to get ahead of it for sure, and at the same time, once we get into those things, again, it's somewhere later in the summertime, and going through the same thing we've talked about Taylor Hall with, and sitting down with him and going from there, and Nico will be a big part of this team moving forward, and if I can get ahead of some things, I'd love to do that, and it's part of planning, and but we'll see what happens, and an offer sheet's not going to change your philosophy on that. I mean, it's it's one of those things. It's part of the CBA, and if that you can take advantage of that and help yourself, great. It's not about the other team. It's not malicious. Teams are competitive, and that's the game. And teams that have more revenue and money, they fronted those contracts, signing whatever, and it's part of the CBA. No one apologizes for that, nor should they on offer sheets. It's the way it goes, and you got to be. I mean, part of managing your team, and it is what it is. I mean, I think Mark Bergevin has a lot of respect for Don Waddell, and not personal, and you're just trying to do what's best for your team, and Carolina will do its best for theirs, and that's how it goes. And but that's not going to affect. There's a lot of great young players that are in the second year. They're finishing their second year of entry level, or going to be in their third. They've just finished their third year, and but again, it's more. Every team's got to do what's best for themselves, and if I can get ahead of something with Nico, I've done this in the past, and but again, it's part of a conversation that will take place later in the summer.
Why these three particular players, and what are you hoping to see from them?
I think number one, depth. They can all play in the National Hockey League and be competitive, and especially, when we traded for PK, we did lose two defensemen, and Jeremy Davies and Steve Santini. That Steve obviously was playing in the National Hockey League, and Jeremy is close, and but it's depth, it's competition, and it's part of it. And part of the thing at Binghamton's an important part of what we're doing, and we own the franchise, and Tom Mitchell and the city of Binghamton are fantastic. And our first 2 years that we were here, we had a very strong team in Albany. But as you transition a lot of those younger players, it's a real young team. And last year, obviously, a lot of injuries down there, and then college because of injuries here. But I think it's important to, again, we're going to have a lot of our younger players are starting to come out and sign. But you need part of development is also having depth, number one. Guys like this that we signed, the three guys that they're, you hope they push for spots in camp, or if not, then they're going to be call-up guys if they, deserve it. But at the same time, we talk about development and great role models, and you see it all around the American Hockey League now, and teams are signing a lot of players for basically double the money they used to pay them just 5 years ago, probably. And but it's important. It's part of depth, and in terms of your NHL team as well. So I'm hopeful those guys will give us a big boost in the organization and up here if needed. And that's that's the way to have a strong organization and development. And again, having a good team in Binghamton is important, and we want to get there. And no different we have most of the time we've had teams, whether it's in Wilkes-Barre or Albany or certainly now in Binghamton, we have to get back where we were. But this is important for the development of kids, and certainly the depth of the New Jersey Devils and through 82 games.
curious about your thoughts on an offer sheet happening yesterday. I mean, we've been hearing about it for so long. Do you think maybe this might open the door for it to happen a little bit more often than it has in the past?
I think, Abby, it's probably impossible for you to answer that, and except that it's not like no one's aware that it's in the CBA, and it's the same thing where some teams can front load contracts, or some teams can, and if you got to keep in mind you have to have your own draft picks and all those things too, and not every team is even eligible to try to sign a player for an offer sheet, and keeping in mind that player has got to be willing, sign with that team, sign the offer sheet, and assuming if it's not matched, the other team gets the compensation, obviously, but that player has got to be willing to play for that team, and you have to have the requisite draft picks, which your own in this case. So a lot of the moving parts in there, and again, there's never anything. I can't say that always, but I mean, it's nothing malicious in terms of, but your job is to try to improve your. I always say this: your job is to try to improve your team any way possible, whether it's through the draft, free agency, trades, waivers. Offer sheets are part of that. I mean, and Montreal is. They got cap space, and at the same time, they have a lot of draft picks for the draft next year, which is taking place in Montreal, and most importantly, they had their own draft picks in a form of compensation, which is required. So I don't have the crystal ball as what would happen, and but one did. So if something happens, so be it. But it's certainly just part of trying to make your team better, and that's what Montreal is trying to do. Nothing more than that, I would think.
Entering here your fifth season as GM for Jersey, is this the most optimistic you felt about your club entering training camp, or is your confidence similar to years past?
No, I think it's probably. No, I think it's a much better feeling. I mean, even the 17-18 camp where I was optimistic once we got underway, it was just felt that was the time it was really turning. And even last year, obviously the record was disappointing, but really felt that we were onto something. And if we got a lot of draft picks and that we've had in the past, and certainly we had 11 draft picks in this past NHL entry draft, but with that cap space, at some point, try to take advantage of it, and we still have some to go. But yeah, I'm optimistic because I think we're finally with a lot of younger players that can be properly developed, and in the competition, that's what you need to. Accountability in competition is important to become a good team, and certainly with the proper youngsters, but also proper veteran players that are really going to help on and off the ice. It goes a long way, and I said that about the Brian Bowles, the Drew Stafford's, even Dalton Prout that was here. He didn't play, but this kid was about what a pro is, and it's about accountability, and it's about good people. And you see guys like Bratton, Butcher, and Nico, and these guys come in, and they see how it's done, and it's important. And then so now you got certainly guys like PK and Wayne Simmonds, and I think they're going to be real helpful for Zajac and for Green, and also I think about Miles Wood and with Wayne, it's this is kind of on the for Miles I think it's a great mentor they can look up to and then learn from, and I think that's good, but I think it's that's why you're optimistic. You have a combination of youth, and we still have cap space, and but again, you have some decisions you have to make as we move forward. But I am optimistic, and but it's one of those things. The league's a good league, and but again, we have to worry about what we're doing, and I think where we are is in a good spot. But we've got a ways to go. But certainly, I feel good about where we are, and there's excitement when you with the PK Subban or Wayne Simmonds and Jack Hughes, and you got some momentum there, and it's to be relevant, and then but also do it the right way, and so I'm looking forward to it. But again, as I say, we got some work to do, and but I think we're making progress.
With all the things you guys have done, and just in this area with what the Rangers and the Islanders have been doing, what does it mean for your rivalries and hockey in general in the city, in this area, to have all three teams buzzing at the same time?
I think it's really important. I think it's awesome, and I think there's nothing worse than apathy, and I really think that even with the draft, 1-2 or whatever, and with Hughes and Capo Caco is It is. They're both really good players, and it's hard to pick one over the other because Capo is a great kid and he's a hell of a player, and that's good for the rivalry. And I think looking back a couple drafts ago, that rivalry-wise, when you have a Jack Hughes Jack Eichel drafted by Buffalo and Patrick Laine, you have one guy in Buffalo, one guy in Winnipeg. You have Austin Matthews, and you have one guy in McDavid. You have one guy in Edmonton, one guy in Buffalo, one guy in Edmonton, one guy in Toronto, not in the same conference. And they're great players, but they play twice a year. And I think with, whether it's Nico Hischier and Nolan Patrick in 2017, Philadelphia, New Jersey, and now obviously with Jack Hughes and Capo Caco, they're played in the same division, let alone conference. And I think that's great for the area. It's great for a rivalry. And I think, whether you play 4 or 5 times, it used to be a lot more in the past years, but we hope we could play more against teams like the Islanders and Flyers and Rangers, because that means we're in the playoffs. And but I think that's great. And Jeff Gordon and John Davis do a real good job there, and of course Lou Lamoriello. You see much more there. When you're in the Hall of Fame, and so the general manager is pretty good. They had a great year last year, and it's always been about the team. And John Tavares went to Toronto, and that's been they made the playoffs and went around the island, and so that's great for the Islanders, and they've had a great, no different than the Devils. There are cups there that they've won, and certainly the cups with the Devils. It's to see all 3 teams here, and obviously Philadelphia is always a competitive team. It makes for a real good rivalry and certainly a great division.